Hello, welcome to Cooking with Briar, in which we cook, and I'm Briar. Today we'll be making pretzels, some recipe I wrote with my own hand that I kind of stole from a website, but whatever. And also, we explain how conduction and convection work in this recipe. Step 1 of cooking is always to wash your hands. Why? Because your hands are gross. I don't use them. So they will be using hand soap to wash your hands. It's important that you use hand soap and not dish soap. Because dish soap is for dishes, and your hands are dishes. If your hands are dishes, then you can use dish soap. If you're there, you cannot use dish soap. So that's washing your hands. Step 2 of cooking, always to read your recipe. This is the recipe, stole it off of a website and then wrote it down to the way that I like to read recipes. It's important to read your recipe before you start because sometimes there's things in there that you have to be prepared for, such as baking powder, which I had to go to the store and buy. That's right, this video is sponsored by me and my own money. So, okay, the actual first step of the recipe is to have warm water, which I have. It's important that your water is not room temperature, just a little bit warmer than that. It's because we are going to add yeast, because yeast is an important part of pretzels. So we have our 1.5 cup of water, as you can see. You can check my math on this one. And the yeast, we're going to be adding 1/4 teaspoon and 1 whole teaspoon. No, 2 whole teaspoons. I read it wrong. That's 1, and that's 2. You just got to worry about letting it be for a whole minute. So don't touch it for a whole 1 minute. So it's been about a minute, and this is how our yeast is looking. As you can see, it's kind of blooming, which is good. That's what we want it to do. So we can add in the other stuff. So I'm going to pour the yeast into a bigger bowl because this is not big enough for the things we're adding. And then we're going to add our other stuff, which is flour and sugar and salt. I know, really complicated stuff. I don't know if you have this at home. So first we're going to put in our salt. For the salt, you only need a teaspoon. We're going to put that into our yeast. We're going to whisk it. Next is the sugar. We're going to add a tablespoon of sugar into this. Now what the sugar is going to do is going to act as food for the yeast. We're wanting this yeast to be alive. Flour. This is 1 cup. And we're going to put that in. And then we're going to whisk it. Now I would suggest having all of your dry ingredients in a bowl and then add them all together as you're whisking. But I didn't do that. So here we are. Then you're going to get a second cup. That's 2 cups. And then we're going to whisk it in, which is 2 cups of flour. This is how our dough is looking. I don't have a stand, so you're going to have to bear with me. This is what it should look like once you have fully mixed in the second cup. Now there is 1 more cup to go, and then a little bit less than a cup. 3/4 of a cup even. I have made an error in my judgment. I forgot to add the tablespoon of melted butter. This is why we read ahead, folks. Use a whole tablespoon. And we're going to use the measurements here. So I've already put the 3rd cup in, so this is also the butter. I was going to hit a point where you whisking it's not going to work, which is fine, because that's just life. So you're going to want to go in with your hands. 1/4 of a cup. You're going to want to pull it forward, and then kind of put it in, and then fold it in. And now if you look, there's still a lot of flour that's not incorporated. Like if I stretch out the dough, there's a lot of parts that haven't gotten the flour. Too dry. Do you see that? It's not taking any more flour. So I'm going to get some water, and then we're going to, make it a little less dry. Dough is ever getting too dry, add water. So this is the dough when it should be. It's not sticky. This is my clean hand. So it's not coming off. Incorporated all of the flour. We have to make a little ball with him, kind of tuck the insides, and we're going to let him rest for 10 minutes. The dough rises. We're going to start boiling the water, 9 cups of water, but I don't care to measure that, so I'm not going to. We're going to boil this water. We're going to be putting 1/2 cup of baking powder. Clink, 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 is for, I'm pretty sure, the acidity of the pretzels to get them to taste right. Clink, 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 clink. Mix this in. We're wanting powder to dissolve fully into the water. Back when this is boiled. Looks like after it's been 10 minutes. It's bouncing back. That means it's good. It'll actually look like a pretzel. And you're going to want to cut it. Cut it in half. Then cut it in half again. Or we're going to be cutting it in half again. Okay. At the end of this, I'm going to have 8 pretzels. To make a pretzel, you got to make a worm. Pretzel. It's a pretzel. It's becoming a pretzel. Pretzel. You're going to go like this. Okay. And then you're going to want to go like this. Kind of squish it in, because you don't want these 2 bits to fall apart. And feel free to kind of open them up. It's down, so it should stay in place. And if it doesn't, terrible. Pretzel. Pretzels again. More pretzels. All pretzels. This is the part where I actually talk about the science project that this is supposed to be. So this is boiling water with baking powder in it. And it's going to do this very fun thing called convection, which is where the heat from the water is going to go into the dough of this pretzel, and heat traveling through anything that isn't a solid. Very hot water and baking soda is king, the dough, because the heat is going through the pan and through the water and baking powder and into the dough of the pretzel. causing it to heat up and for it to cook and turn into not raw dough. One of the beauty about doing things like this is it keeps the dough from being crunchy because it's water, so it retains the liquid. When you do conduction, which is the one where it's something hot directly touching the other thing, so there's no space in between it. What that does, when there's no space between them, there is a liquid from the one thing leaves, obviously. So this method right here of having it be boiling water to cook the dough makes the moisture within the dough stay, because it can't be cooked out into steam as the water is sealing it. Later we're going to put them into the oven, and that is conduction. And why we do that is not because we want the dough to be fully cooked that way, it's getting fully cooked in here, but because we want the outside of the pretzel to be crunchier and to have its kind of golden brown appearance. As we can see, this is very pale. This is pretty much the same color as the dough, as you can see. So it makes the dough keep a kind of like sliminess, I say as I drop it. This method is also used for breads like bagels and some Italian breads. I think it's called Italian Easter bread. It also uses this method. Kind of makes the dough, if you cook it this way, it makes the dough softer, and it has like a chewiness to it, which you wouldn't get through like cooking it on a pan or in an oven. You can also use this method for pasta, and you could boil meat if you want the meat to be tough. With the regular way of on a grill, the meat like has a juiciness to it. That doesn't happen if you boil it. It will get tough. And sometimes, depending on the meat, it may get dry. It may have a dry feeling. So like if you boil beef, it's not going to be very juicy, and it's not going to be very tender feeling. It's going to be kind of tough and maybe feel and taste a little bit bland, and it will turn kind of a gray color. You can also boil hot dogs. One sides to cooking this is, like I said, for meat. It gets kind of gross, but if that's all you got, that's all you got. Also, like, it's really easy to mess up the texture. This needs to be in longer, actually. So like, when you overcook pasta and it's not al dente and it's actually just mush in your mouth? That's it getting overcooked. But we're going to be using conduction on this one, which is where you have the pan that's going to get heated up by the oven, which uses convection because of the coils getting heated up, and then they heat the air, and then they heat the pan, and then that's how it gets hot. Science. But this is going to cook the bottoms of this, but it will also cook through it, and on the outside, the hot air will also cook it. So that's like 2 in 1. Those are going to go in for 15 minutes. As I was talking earlier, you boil it, and it's going to have a different texture to it than if you were to just cook it onto a hot pan. Things that you would cook on a hot pan. Cookies, that's one. Steaks, other meats that you would just put on a pan and let it like cook. Baked potatoes, you pretty much put on a pan and cook. If you caramelize anything, eggs, I don't know, I guess boiled eggs you would put out of convection. Anyways, my sources? Me. I am a credible source. My credentials are I've been cooking for most of my life. And also, we covered this in class. So I would say actually my source would be Mr. Vu and my own brain. See how those pretzels turn out now. And here we are, the final product. These beautiful, beautiful pretzels that you watched me make. Look how beautiful this one is. This one's less beautiful, but you can imagine that they are all equally beautiful. A thing of cheese that I made off camera. You will get my honest reaction to eating pretzels that I made. Now, if you were smarter than I am, you would have put butter on them and then sprinkled some salt so that they would have seasoning. I forgot to do that, but that's okay because I put plenty of seasoning in my cheese. So I'm getting a little paper napkin for me, and we're going to try some. This is the inside. As you can see, fully cooked. Trust the process, trust the process. You can also look, if you look really close here, you can see the difference of the cooking methods. Like this part is all cooked from the convection, which is when we boiled them. And then on the edge, you can see there's kind of a line of a crust. And that's from the induction. I'm stalling because it's hot, okay? Let me live. Oh, it is very hot, ouch. That is a pretzel. Delish. And now I have 8 of these. This has been Cooking with Briar, where we cooked, and I'm Briar.